All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the I Think I'm Closer to a Name podcast. I am your host, Zubaz, and I am joined today by my friend and recently the World Series champion of GOAT, Smittias or Smittias, however you want to say it. We'll get it resolved right now. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Jason, Zubaz, whatever you want to call yourself.
You know, Zubaz Z is the one that always got me because of that capital letter. People like to add the Z to it.
So I had originally heard it was officially Zubaz Z. Is that not true?
No, it's just Zubaz. I think the capital Z threw everybody off.
I always used to refer to you as Zubaz, and people would correct me and say it's actually, little known fact, it's actually Zubaz Z. I was like, I had no idea.
Little known myth. So let's get it out there. Is it Smittias or Smittias?
Smittias.
Yeah.
I had a boss. So the history of Smitty. I am probably one of the only, or a very limited number of people with a nickname of Smitty without the last name of Smith.
Yeah, that is strange.
Yeah, and really what it comes down to is one of my first jobs, I was in a sales role, and I had to actually go call on an account in Kentucky. And I hope this isn't these days, this might be politically incorrect, but we were a little bit concerned with me going down to Kentucky with Dave Steinberger business cards. We just didn't know if I would necessarily
didn't know how it would play.
I didn't know how it would play out, didn't know if I could get the meeting, and so somebody joked around that I should just get some Dave Smith cards for when I head down there. And and I was like, boy, Dave Smith, like that almost sounds fake, it's too ordinary. And people were like, what are you talking about, we'll call you Smitty. And it stuck, and like to where the president of the company called me Smitty. And so it was my boss at the time, this guy named Al, and he used to love to pontificate. And he used to, when we were in a meeting, he would like sit back in his chair and he would go, Smittias. And that's where it came from. It was also, it's not Smittias. It was a very pensive and well thought out Smittias. There you go.
Yeah, okay, so you know what? I knew it was Smittias because the first time we talked years ago, that was one of the first questions I asked you, but I did not know that story. That's a great story. And it's funny that Smittias is actually what should be correct, but your boss like churched it up an additional notch.
That's exactly right.
Smittias. That's great. It's funny how those names stick with people over the years. I don't know if I said it on the last podcast or not, but the very first no, I didn't. The very first nickname I ever had in my life was Gravy Train, which is a great nickname, right? Because,
Sure.
Avy rhymes with gravy, and so they started calling me the Gravy Train. But at the time, Gravy Train was a dog food, if you remember, Gravy Train dog food.
Yeah.
I didn't like it because of that. But now, if people were calling me Gravy Train, I'd be on cloud nine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mentioned
my other big one was in college, they screwed up when I joined the fraternity. They screwed up my last name, and they combined the E and the R. When you write an E and an R really close to each other, it could look like an O. And so I got all my membership stuff back to Dave Steinbogo. And so everybody started calling me Bogo the Jewish clown. And ever since then, I've been known as Bogo. And Bogo now means buy one, get one free. There are BOGO sales everywhere. And so everywhere I go, there's all these ads for BOGO, and it kind of always freaks me out.
Real good placement marketing for you. It's like BOGO over here. Come on over here. We got a deal for you.
There was a TV ad that was like, BOGO, what's a BOGO? I want a BOGO. And I was like, yeah, all right.
Yeah. Well, we could bring that one back. BOGO. That's a good nickname too.
Yeah. But okay, we're not here to talk solely.
No. Well, we could, but we got to get back to the top of the show because I love winning World Series more than anything else. I can tell you honestly, the first time I won the World Series in TCL, I told this story on the Threads of Time podcast. I had a bottle of champagne and I actually shook it up and popped it in my house, sprayed champagne all over the ceiling. I don't have a wife, so I can get away with doing shit like that, but just sprayed it
I think
everywhere.
we know why you don't have a wife, but
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And then, yeah, because the only bad part of that is I didn't get to drink all the champagne because some of it was on the ceiling. But I really get into it. So you won the World Series. Let's hear about it. Do some talk.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, there was years where I would confidently say I was among the better players of the game. I was trying the hardest. I was working the hardest at it. I was putting a lot into it. These days, I haven't had quite as much time to put into it, so my game has suffered a little bit. I'm not winning World Series quite like I used to, but I have always been very proud to be in GOAT. I've always loved the GOAT model. A guy named Peyton Fan always is the one who originally started it, and I
Is
was
he still
kind
around?
of what's that?
Is Peyton Fan always still around?
Oh no,
No, I remember him. He was very good
yeah,
player.
yeah, he's completely gone, and I mean completely gone, like points unknown. Um, uh, but uh, but yeah, I was kind of his right hand man when he was getting that started, and then when he left, G Sparks took it over, and but I think I'm the only owner who's been in all 5 iterations of it, so that one definitely has is near and dear, and yeah, I just won the World Series there over the weekend, and it's probably the first World Series I've won in a little while in any league, but I was especially happy to do it in GOAT.
And so those sprints, they probably last about 1 year each, I think. So for people that aren't familiar with it, talk through the model because it's one of the more unique models in the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a 10-year sprint. So it starts out with a full redraft. So it's an invite only league, and 24 owners who get invited and accept the invitation will all draft from scratch. Again, with the knowledge that it's a 10-year sprint league. So as you can imagine, draft picks in year 10 aren't worth that much.
Yeah.
So, there's not a lot of opportunity for tanking or for rebuilding or things like that. It's just a 10-year sprint. So there's a lot of different philosophies and approaches. We in the draft, the first 4 years of amateur drafts can be drafted. So you could actually so pick one in year 3 is actually something you would draft in the initial draft as opposed to picking a player.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah,
That's
so there's
cool.
a lot of interesting strategies around it. We just entered I won season 4, so season 5 just started, and we have an international free agency there. So we have 24 free agents that just entered the league, and people can choose whether to sign them or skip and move up next year, things like that. So there's some really cool features around the league. But really, it's the best part about it is that it's 24 people who all care and who are all trying their hardest to win, and who all are veteran owners and know how to play the game, and so it's a lot of fun. The level of competition is really up there.
How does? Sorry, I don't want to go real deep here, but you have me really intrigued. What is this international free agency? How does that work?
It was a concept that they took from that G Sparks brought from another league. But basically, this was another draftable event. But so when we were doing the draft at the beginning of the league, you could draft players, and there were actually 2 drafts: a 25 and older draft and a 24 and younger draft. And so you could draft players, or you could draft any of the first 4 rounds of first rounders, or you could draft a slot in an international free agent draft starting in year 5.
Oh, this gets
So
tough.
it's not as complicated as it sounds, but so
Yeah.
Owner A has slots, and if you decide to draft some agent that comes up, you then move to the back. So as the years go on, the folks who don't draft people move up. The folks who do move to the back.
I see. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Boy, you're right. That initial draft, I mean, I bet people put a lot of work into it because that really determines at least the whole front half of the sprint, if not the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that's really the big time commitment is that initial draft. And you know it you know, we all have different personalities. I love drafting. I mean, I mean, when I
Love
was
it more than anything.
as a kid, I mean, my best friend used to joke with me because I frankly like drafting teams better than I like playing the game. And so,
Yep.
you know, after I was done drafting a team, I'd kind of be like, "You want to draft another team?" And he's like, "Can we play a few games first?" You know. So I love that. So for me, it really works. But yeah, I mean, that part is a bit of a time commitment.
Because like you have like a really, really good 23-year-old catcher, and he becomes more important than like a 31-year-old super ace pitcher.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, um, yeah, youth is a premium, especially fully developed youth.
And so the idea is that it's called GOAT because you're the greatest of all time if you win the whole sprint, right?
I mean, you know, because it was, I think probably the first invite only league. I mean, that really what it was meant as is just like a, you know, the greatest owners come and compete with each other. And, you know, obviously there's a bit of ego and swagger there, but you know, nothing wrong with that. But yeah, that's kind of was the concept behind it.
Winning year 5, this puts you right in the mix.
Year 4 I won, and yeah, I'm
year 4.
Next, I think I won. So there is a grand sprint winner, and I did win the first one. I have not won a sprint since then, so sure, I would love it. I would love it if the old grizzled veteran is able to grab another trophy. Why not?
Did you win a World Series in TCL?
I did. It took me a little while, but I did. I think I've actually won twice, both like, you know, with teams that shouldn't win, sort of thing.
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
You know, because I'm a contrarian.
And roll the dice.
And you know, I mean, even my GOAT team. I mean, my GOAT team did not have a single range over 70. 79 was the largest, the highest range on in my defense. And I'm someone who. I know full well the importance of having good range and how significant that can be to help your pitchers out and so on. But I am absolutely a believer in, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I'm absolutely a believer in contrarian theories. And, you know, if everybody is zigging, then I'm the guy that's going to zag. And so, you know, I like going into these leagues where, you know, where people are taking a 580 OPS shortstop, you know, in the first round because he's got 98 range. I like going into those leagues and building a monster offense team and getting a few good pitchers and maybe not worrying so much about defense. And, you know, I think especially in a league like GOAT where, you know, it's a limited span and you've got 10 really good owners, like 24 really good owners. I mean, the reality is that there's 3 aspects to this game, you know, and it's like offense and pitching and defense. And I'm sorry, you know, if you can't always build all 3. And my feeling is defense is a luxury when you have good offense and good pitching. You know, a lot of people view it more as defense is a must and you worry about the pitching and the hitting afterwards. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong answer, but you know, it's partly to each our own, you know. I mean, I don't want to have a 640 OPS team, you know, that's getting
what fun is that?
You know, like I don't want that.
Well, and you know, some of it I've always had this thesis about, because I've really gotten good at small park baseball. I'm not very good at big park baseball. And small park baseball, actually, those type of shortstops a lot of times are detrimental because with how CSFBL base running works, killing an inning isn't just about what that shortstop did. It's about what the 3 players after him can do. And generally they're your 3 best hitters. And so like a 79, 77 range shortstop that can hit 280, 290, 300 actually becomes more valuable because you get a lot more bigger innings. Yeah, at least that's my thought.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So, and you know, you talk about drafts. While TCL will always be the grandest and greatest league for me. Redraft has really got my heart in a lot of ways because we get to redraft the entire league every single year. And so to your point, there's nothing better than that, because when I was a kid, the
Yeah.
first year, I forget what year it was, Madden, like 98 or 99, maybe it was 2000, where they let you do your first fantasy draft and you could draft the whole thing. I would just draft over and over and then sim the season. And then a couple
Yeah.
years later, they came out with dynasty mode. Then you could sim multiple seasons. And I would just,
Yeah.
I think other than the Super Bowls, I never played a Madden game beginning to end, but I'd play hundreds of hours of Madden doing that.
Right. Right. Just more the GM side of things than the head coach sort of.
Yeah. And I think that's, really the moat of the business of CSFBL is like really building that out to a point where kind of like with GOAT, how we were talking, like you can make a game within the game. Hopefully, eventually we'll get it to a point where the game is so flexible that you can build a league however you want with all these interesting rules. And then on the backside, we have this wealth of data that you can look at stats in a variety of ways so that people like you and I can just like get the most out of that. I haven't seen anybody do that really well, and I think we have a chance to do it.
I agree. I've always thought that.
Yeah. Sure. And you have always thought that because, one of the, I think the first time you and I probably had a serious conversation about CSFBL was when you really were running the front side of things quite a bit. And I don't know if everybody knows that story, but there's I'm guessing like a 2-year period where you got really active, stood up a lot of the customer communications, you were putting out data, you were trying to get Facebook up and running, and you really had a concerted effort towards this. And I think it'd be interesting for people to know, like, how did that start? What motivated you? And tell us about that some more.
Yeah, sure. And I touched on this a little bit in our intros. When our news was announced, and we all kind of posted on the forum some intros. So to any viewers who may have read that, I apologize if this is repetitive. But I was in the early 2010s. I was exiting a marriage that was not awful, but just kind of bland and mediocre and needed to be exited. I was exiting a couple of jobs back to back that fell into the same category. Nothing wrong with them, but just nothing all that right about them either. And just really wasn't feeling very fulfilled. I don't know. I guess to some you would call it a midlife crisis. I don't know if it was that as much as it was more just a realization that doing something you enjoy is important, and how you spend your day, and if you work on something you're passionate about, it just changes everything. It changes how you wake up in the morning. It changes how you eat your cereal. It changes how you talk to your mailman. It changes everything. And
I called mine the midlife correction, not the midlife crisis, because I didn't feel like I was in crisis. I actually felt like I was liberating myself for the first time in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I always talk about about the path, and life is just a path, and you're going to hit speed bumps and you're going to take a wrong turn, and you just learn all those things as you go down the path. And so after realizing that I could have a much happier home life and a much happier work life, I tried to seek both of those things out. Just to be completely dumb and blunt about it. And CSFBL was something which I had played for years. I really enjoyed. I was always scratching my head that, how could I love this game so much and yet there's only a few thousand people playing it, or there's only, like this has to be more. There has to be a way to make this more. And so, around then is when, I fell in love with my current wife and best friend, and I fell in love with trying to make CSFBL into something bigger. And, so there's a couple of years there where I was trying to work with Brian and, trying to build up the community and unlock the data. I'm definitely, the data to me is a huge part of it. The history of the game is a huge part of it. I still think there's a ton of potential. Timing is everything. And I think one of the unfortunate things about the history of this game is that the timing has never seemed to align, when someone like me would pop up and say, hey, I have a lot of value I can add to the game. Well, at that point, maybe it wasn't the right time for Brian, or, when Brian has time to do something, maybe there wasn't, somebody like me who could help out on the business side available, or, whatever. And that's what I'm so excited about right now, is that, even though the timing isn't right for me per se, like I can't necessarily put into the game what I was able to put into back then. You can, and Brian can, and Russ can, and it feels like a lot of this is starting to come together now to really be able to fulfill on the promise and the mission that that I felt all those many years ago, and that I know you feel, and that so many people have felt, that play this game, that love the game, and who wish it could be more, for personal selfish reasons, as well as for for social good and the good of mankind, and so on. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that was really well said, and I agree with you. I think this the team coming together is really ideal right now, and I felt very fortunate that Brian's timing and Russ's timing worked out so well, because I watch them every day and watch their communication back and forth, front, back end, testing, and they're really well aligned. They're moving pretty quick, and everybody doesn't see everything happening in the background, but there's a lot of things happening right now. The most important thing is there's a big test environment that we're getting stood up, and that will proliferate a lot of things. But I actually think, and when we first were talking about doing that my first question was, can you fill that role? And you said, yeah, it's just not the perfect time in my life. And in a way, it worked out even better, though, because Russ, I think, is ideal for the role we're putting him in. And then it still leaves you to play like almost this advisory role, because of your history, your relationship with Brian. Certainly, you and I have grown to be friends, and I just think like you become an important part from that standpoint, because you've been thinking about what this could be on the front end maybe longer than anyone else.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely want to stay involved as much as I can. I'm really excited about this next phase. Part of me kind of kicks myself that I wish I could do more right now, but who knows what the future holds. But yeah, I mean, right now, yeah, the advisor, if I can serve any value as an advisor, as a ombudsman, as whatever, then I'm happy to do that. The gray hair counts for something. So, maybe I can pretend to have some wisdom or something.
It's funny you mentioned the gray hair. I wore a hat today because I decided that the lighting is making me look bald. It has nothing to do with me balding. It's purely the lighting.
But I got like it's trick photography.
Yeah. I have a whole like balding landing strip coming, so there's going to be a lot more hats in my future. But when I started, just a total side note that I just thought about now, when I started the game, I don't know why, but I thought it was like me and a lot of kids, because it was like playing a game. And then when I got to know the people that were playing, they were all 30 and up, or 25 and up. It was our crowd.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the not to be too general or stereotypical, but I think in general, a younger crowd tends to want more of the graphical gameplay, and I think for maybe a little bit of an older crowd, the stats, the stats are really what it's all about, the data, the numbers, and not so much the look at the fireworks as the ball's clearing the fence, but more so just the kind of roll up your sleeves, nuts and bolts. At least, that's certainly what it is for me. I mean, I again, going back to my youth, I was more likely to play Stratomatic than I was to play a graphical baseball game, and I did both, but Stratomatic was always near and dear to my heart.
Amen to that. Yeah. And so we're starting to run short on time, so I'm gonna start wrapping it up. But one of the things I alluded to at the beginning was I'm coming closer to an idea for the name of the podcast, and one of the things that I kept coming back to was I really like the CSFBL logo, and the thing I like about it is the plate isn't upside down as much as it's in the position as you would see it if you're sliding into home. And so I kept coming back to this idea of being like almost home, looking at home, 90 feet from home, something like that, because I think there is a lot of metaphorical aspects to the term home and where people are headed on their personal journey, but also it's really the most crucial part of baseball, because when you think about it, it's the only game where every single player's focal point is at one plate, the plate, or one place, the plate, almost all the time, 90% of the time, right? And even the pitchers trying to get home, they're trying to get the ball right past the hitter. So there was something about home that keeps coming back. So I think I'm going to tie that into the title somehow. So this is a hot take I'm asking you for, but I'm going to throw it past you and see what you think.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like the whole notion of rounding third and heading home. We got to figure out how to turn that into a podcast name. But yeah, I like that.
The other thing I was thinking about is the idea. Have you seen Ken Burns' 8-piece documentary on baseball? I mean,
yeah, a long time ago, but yeah.
One of the greatest things I've ever watched in my life, and I've seen it a couple times because I love baseball. Anybody that hasn't watched it, please watch it. But one of the things he goes into is all the unique pieces of baseball. And he does this prolonged part about how lucky baseball got that they chose 90 feet. And I just couldn't get over it, because when you think about how baseball is played now and how much faster the guys are now and how much rangier the infielders are, but it's still within milliseconds, nanoseconds at first and third base. And if it wasn't that, if it was shorter or longer, I'm not sure baseball even gets off the ground. And so I think 90 feet is just an incredible number when it comes to baseball as well.
Yeah, it's the math of the baseball diamond has always fascinated me, and it does seem that way. I mean, you're right. I mean, you would think the game's changed so much. I mean, how could, if pitchers are throwing 100 miles an hour, how is the mound still only 60 feet 6 inches? But that's because batters have advanced their ability to identify a pitch and to their bat speed and their so yeah, I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, 60 years ago, there were, catchers throwing bang, bang, balls to second base, to nail a base runner. And it's just as bang, bang today as it was then, even though the runners are faster, the catcher throws harder, the gloves are better, whatever. It's just, yeah, it's remarkable.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's one of the, and I think that's going to be a theme of this podcast too, is I want to get in somewhere in every episode just how amazing of a sport baseball is, because it really is just incredible for people that get to know it. So real high level question though, who's your favorite baseball team, and what is your earliest baseball memory? And I think we'll probably end it there, because I'm sure you have a good story, because everybody seems to.
So I grew up in Queens, Queens, New York. And my first baseball related memory would probably be buying packs of cards in 1973. That was the first year I remember buying cards and flipping them. They had the little circle logo that was colored, and so you would flip it, and based on the color of the
yeah.
circle, you'd either win the flip or not. So that's one of my first memories. That was followed right away by, the Mets actually made it into the World Series in '73. So, so my first year basically as a baseball fan, the team that was geographically closest to me
Yeah.
made it into the World Series.
The
So
local fans going wild.
so I became a Mets fan. The next year, my dad and I went to my first baseball game, which was I think it was a 2-0 shutout. I think John Matlack pitched. That was against the Dodgers. My dad was a big Brooklyn Dodgers fan when he was growing up. So those are really my first baseball memories. And, I was a Met fan ever since. That's waned a bit. But growing up, I was a Mets fan, and, they were great in '73 and then sucked for, the next 13 years or
13
so.
years,
So,
yeah.
I had to live with all the Yankee fans who were just going crazy in the late '70s. And, I was alone as a Met fan in a sea of extremely obnoxious Yankee fans. So that was rough. But,
I
Bill's
would name this podcast Yankees Suck, but I know Brian's just too big of a fan for me to get away with that.
He might. If he has veto power, he might veto that one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, and there's a 30 for 30 on the Mets run up to that '86 team. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen it yet. I need to. I mean,
Oh,
I think it's more about the partying and the drugs
It is.
than it was about gameplay, but I'll probably enjoy that anyway. So yeah, I'll have to check that out.
No, it's good. It's really good. It is a lot about that, but it's mostly just like what a unique group of personalities that team had and how they pulled it all together. It's a good story.
And the whole, like, everybody has like a where were you when, and a lot of times it's bad stuff, like terrible things like 9/11 or JFK getting shot or things like that. But for me, one of them is like, I'll always remember my game 6 1986 game 6 memory. We were initiating a fraternity at Cornell University, and I was in their basement watching the game, and in the top of the 10th, I mean, all the Red Sox fans are popping the champagne and just going nuts and bonkers, and then of course the miracle
The dribbler.
10th happened, and it was just insane being in a giant room full of baseball fans, half of whom had just been celebrating and now wanted to kill themselves, and the other half had wanted to kill themselves and now are completely celebrating, and it's just that I'll always remember that night. That was crazy.
Yeah, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I have a friend who named his daughter. Well, no, I think her name's Melissa, but he calls her Mookie, and everybody calls her Mookie because of Mookie Wilson, and which is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Still feel bad for Bill Buckner, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. Thanks for taking the time to be on the podcast. This is officially podcast number 3, so that means we're a trend and we're up and running. Any final thoughts you have for all the people listening?
No, just to anyone who's made it this far through, just there's never been a better time to be optimistic about the game we love. So I think the game has already gotten better in the last couple of weeks, but I mean, I think there's some really good plans and really exciting things in the future, and I think I can confidently say the future's never looked brighter for the game. So if you're enjoying the game, continue to enjoy it. If you haven't played for a little while, come back and give it another shot. Tell your friends, and yeah, let's have some fun together.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll put in a quick little plug. If it hasn't launched yet, it will be launching here in minutes or days, but we're getting the Discord server up and running. So if you've used Discord in the past, that will be a great place for people to communicate. I'm still getting used to it. It turned out I was actually broadcasting my voice for like a half hour. So I have some learning to do, but Discord's a cool place for us to communicate throughout the game. So with that, Smittias, thank you very much for being on the podcast, and all of you for watching. And until next time, we are out of here.
Bye, everybody.